Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial for how to read a grading rubric for a final assignment. So in my courses, I've got two types of assignments. I have a practice assignment and a final assignment. So practice assignments are called various things depending upon the course. So sometimes they're called skills practice assignments, sometimes they're called coding assignments. And the idea is that we're practicing the skill that we're learning. And then final assignments, well, they have a couple of names, final projects, um, final paper, um, term paper, research paper. Um, these are things that typically happen at the end of the course. We're not practicing, we're demonstrating the skill that we learned in the course. So I'm going to go through a grading rubric for an assignment. I just made up a new grading rubric for a revised assignment in my IS 439 course. This is the spring of 2022. So in my web development using application frameworks course, there's a final project. So this is a final assignment. Okay. Uh, Now, one of the difference between the rubrics and the grading deals between practice assignments and final assignments is final assignments have no grading assistance. So in practice assignments, there's usually a deal if you make a good faith effort on all parts, you won't score less than a certain amount. There's also things like a base amount of points. So I spot you some points. Not true for final assignments. So in final assignments, you have to earn every point, okay? And what you score is what you get. All right. So let me walk you through the grading rubric for this final project, okay? Um, and the way you read a grading rubric, um, these kind of major boxes that are kind of light gray green with like the word submission. Um, this is a section of the rubric, and these darker green boxes with a word like timeliness. This is an item. So a grading rubric is made up of one or more sections, and each of the sections have one or more items. So the submission section has it has three items. Okay, timeliness, physical submission, suitability of submission for grading. Okay, and that might be typical for a programming oriented kind of course like this is. Okay. Um, uh, it might be different in a different course, but uh, that's how you read the rubric. Okay. So uh, for timeliness, it says 10 available points. So you can earn up to 10 points for timeliness. And we have a list of the requirements. Okay. Must be submitted by date and time indicated in the weekly schedule. And these are the grades that you can get. You can get 100% of the available points, 50%, or zero. So 100% for on time, 50% for up to 3 days late, zero for more than 3 and up to 7 days late, and uh, 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 and also zero for not submitted or submitted too late. Now, on final assignments, we have about a week to grade all of your submissions. and get them into the grading system such that you can get your grades. And we have a lot to grade. Uh, in this course, we've got 50 students. So we have to grade 50 final projects in a week. And that's close. Okay. So one of the reasons that there's a pretty stiff penalty for lateness is that we don't have a lot of latitude. And if everybody were to, to hand them in late, we would miss the deadline for everybody. So 10 points might seem a little steep for timeliness, but that's what it takes to get people's attention. Physical submission. Okay. Usually this has to do with the character of the file that you submit to Canvas. Here in this case, one and only one file. It must be a zip file, and it must be the directory names and file names must conform to the instructions. Again, this doesn't seem like that much to some students, but these factors make it feasible for us to grade in a reasonable time. If in fact you don't submit a reasonable file, it can take us 2 and 5 and 10 times as long to grade. Okay, so there's a lot of points on this as a result, and the same kind of scale. Okay. Suitability of submission for grading. Okay, again, 10 available points. Okay, so the requirement, project must be suitable to be run by the grader as submitted. Okay, so in some of these courses, if it's not runnable when we get it, we will check on a final assignment and we'll send you back a note and say, can you resubmit? It's got this a problem. It won't even run. Okay? And you would think nobody would hand in something that, that won't run. But people do. Okay? So we've allocated 10 points to that. So we've got 30 points on submission. Okay? Which is a lot of points. Okay? You can kind of look at it one way or the other. The penalties are steep, or, geez, we're giving you a lot of points for just following directions. Okay? I prefer to think of it as the latter. Okay? And it turns out these steep amount of points are what it takes to get attention from students. And that's why you'll often see these on a final assignment. Okay, so the work of the final project is broken up into 2 sections in the grading rubric. We have a section for exercise 1. In this case, we're creating a Django project, so we call it the Django application. Exercise 1 is a required exercise. Okay, so you have to do it. All right. And then if we go down a couple of more blocks, you'll see that there's an exercise 2, which is an optional challenge exercise, and it's not required. The points available for the optional challenge exercise, as in the practice assignments, is 5 points. So this is what you have to do to get the points between 95 and 100. Okay, and it's usually pretty steep. There's a lot of work to do for 5 points. But that's what it takes to distinguish yourself between 95 and 100. Okay, so let's back up. It turns out that this exercise 1 has got, I think, 3 items. Project size, okay, on which that has a requirement, and you can score from 0 to 100%. That's 20 points. Okay, and then we've got other measures of completeness. It's typical for there to be at least two items when you get to these things. Usually, completeness and technique. In this case, we have a third one, project size. Kind of a completeness measure all by itself, which is why the second item is called other measures of completeness. Okay? Other measures of completeness, 20 available points. Okay? And then technique, 25 available points. Okay, and you can see for technique there are a lot of requirements. Okay? Must use the design features presented in the tutorial. Code follows good coding practices. Okay, so you have to meet all these requirements in order to get 100%. Okay. And then on exercise 2, this is a typical kind of organization for this part of the rubric. So exercise 2, again, is the optional challenge exercise. It's not required, okay? You don't have to do it, because if you do a very good job on everything else, you get a 95. That's a solid A, okay? Very respectable, a great grade. All right, but if you do it, we have a completeness part. So under the section exercise 2, there are two items. Completeness, which is worth 3 points, and technique, which is worth 2 points. Okay? And all those add up to 100 points. Okay? So what grade should you expect if you do everything perfectly? Well, if you do everything perfectly and you only do the required exercise 1, well, you should expect a 95. That's a great grade. If you do everything perfectly and you do the optional challenge exercise as well, you could get up to 100. Okay. Again, pretty typically the challenge exercise on a final assignment, there's a lot of work here. Okay. It's a lot of work for 5 points, and it's hard. Okay. But some people will get to 100. Okay. Okay, so that's how you read this kind of grading rubric. Of course, if your final assignment is, say, a paper for another course, well, it's not going to be organized exactly the same way. But what it's going to have in common are no base points, okay, no grading deal, a pretty big emphasis on the submission part, because we have a lot to grade in a very short time. Okay, so a lot of the characteristics will be the same, even if it's a different course. But some things are going to be different. You'll find a similar organization and a similar deal, but different particulars. So that's it for this tutorial. I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.